In October, I was with G in Moscow. His small apartment on the Bolshaya Dmitrova, all the floors and walls of which were covered in the Eastern style with carpets and the ceiling hung with silk shawls, astonished me by its special atmosphere. First of all, the people who came there, who were all G's pupils, were not afraid to keep silent. This alone was something unusual. They came, sat down, smoked. They often did not speak a single word for hours, and there was nothing oppressive or unpleasant in this silence. On the contrary, there was a feeling of assurance and of freedom from the necessity of playing a forced and an invented role. But on chance and curious visitors, this silence produced an extraordinarily strange impression. They began to talk, and they talked without stopping, as if they were afraid of stopping and feeling something. On the other hand, others were offended. They thought that the silence was directed against them in order to show them how much superior G's pupils were, and to make them understand that it was not worthwhile even talking to them. Others found it stupid, amusing, unnatural, and that it showed our worst features, particularly our weaknesses and our complete subordination to G, who was oppressing us. P even decided to make notes of the reactions of various types of people to the silence. I realised in this place that people feared silence more than anything else, that our tendency to talk arises from self-defence, and is always based upon a reluctance to see something, a reluctance to confess something to someone. I quickly noticed a still stranger property of G's apartment. It was not possible to tell lies there. A lie at once became apparent, obvious, tangible, indubitable. Once there came an acquaintance of G's, whom I had met before, and who sometimes came to G's groups. Besides myself, there were 2 or 3 people in the apartment. G himself was not there. And having sat a while in silence, our guest began to tell how he had just met a man who had told him some extraordinarily interesting things about the war, about possibilities of peace, and so on. And suddenly, quite unexpectedly for me, I felt that he was lying. He had not met anybody, and nobody had told him anything. He was making it all up on the spot, simply because he could not endure the silence. I felt awkward looking at him. It seemed to me that if I looked at him, he would realise that I saw that he was lying. I glanced at the others and saw that they felt as I did, and were barely able to repress their smiles. I then looked at the one who was talking, and I saw that he alone noticed nothing, and he continued to talk very rapidly, becoming more and more carried away by his subject, and not at all noticing the glances that we unintentionally exchanged with one another. This was not the only case. I suddenly remembered the attempts we made in the summer to describe our lives and the intonations with which we spoke when we tried to hide facts. I realised that here also the whole thing was in the intonations. When a man is chattering or simply waiting for an opportunity to begin, he does not notice the intonations of others, and is unable to distinguish lies from the truth. But directly he is quiet himself, that is, awakes a little, he hears the different intonations and begins to distinguish other people's lies. We spoke several times with G's pupils on this subject. I told them what had happened in Finland and about the sleeping people I had seen on the streets of St. Petersburg. The feeling of mechanical lying people here in G's apartment reminded me very much of the feeling of sleeping people.